All right, Debbie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. First of all, can I call you Debbie? Because I mean, that's what I've been calling you for like, what, over 30 years now?
Pretty much. You could call me that. That's my unofficial name.
Despina Sourias. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you for having me. Great is maybe a big word. We just came out of was at the Commission des Finances de l'administration today. So specifically for the service dédié à la diversité de l'inclusion sociale, which I'm affiliated to as a advisory, a special, an associate counselor to Josefina. So yeah, it was just it's interesting, busy, a lot of meetings, and
We're gonna definitely get to we're gonna definitely get to all of that because you're entering a world where obviously you're gonna see a lot of new things and interesting things as well. But yeah, I gotta ask you how you are, because last time I saw you, I think we were at a birthday party in a park at the summertime. It was last year.
Exactly. Yeah, it was.
Haven't seen you since. Yeah, haven't seen you since. So, how's everything? How's the family? How have you been coping? This whole COVID thing.
The family's good. My daughter's good. She was having a hard time. Well, she was enjoying being home with us for the last few weeks because, it's Christmas. She's having a hard time at the daycare now. Dennis is good. He's working downstairs. Getting used to being more at home, which is a bit hard when you're starting a new job. You kind of want to be around people, but things are good. I'm happy with my new beginnings.
Good.
Yeah.
Here's what's funny, because I had planned on covering the municipal campaign. I had done a series of interviews with a bunch of candidates for the federal campaign. It went all the way up until October. And then I think you guys overlapped. You started like a couple of days before that campaign ended. And I had promised to everyone listening, everyone watching, that as soon as the federal campaign would end, I would jump right into the municipal campaign. And I got to be honest with you, I got so turned off by, the whole electoral discourse, and not yours. I'm talking about specifically the federal election, where I honestly I wanted to tune off. So I ditched the entire idea of doing interviews for the municipal one. And ever since then, the podcast has been in hiatus. So you're the first episode back, if you want.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to say something about the podcast. I started listening to your podcast, this one and the other one, just as dads during COVID.
Yeah.
Just to be connected, to feel connected to people. While I was cooking, I was hearing you, George and Chris. It's congratulations for that. I find that it's kind of a fun thing to do, and it also is informative. I like the format. That it's
we're having a lot of fun. That one hasn't gone. That one hasn't gone on pause. I'm actually surprised that we're still doing that. We when we started, it was end of 2019. We did the first episode, like, I don't know, November, I think, of 2019. And we just didn't talk to each other. Everyone went off on their own. Christmas came along, and I'm like, okay, that was it. We did one episode, And then in the beginning of 2020, we started, and we've been very consistent. Actually, we've never stopped. So I'm actually surprised. And it's like you're saying, it's a lot of fun. And it gives us the opportunity to just see each other, which was exactly the excuse for us was, look, let's just get away from my wife and my kids and talk to my
That's what I was hearing. But it's funny because the conversations that you have reflect the conversations that you would have outside. Like I've experienced that banter between you guys. So
exactly. No, thank you though. Thanks. Means a lot. Let me just start by saying, first of all, I had no idea that you were running, or that you were thinking of running, or that you were even remotely interested in doing politics. Now, obviously, I've covered campaigns on the podcast. Like I said before, I lost a lot of interest, by the time the municipal campaign came along. But I was following the campaigns, right? Especially certain districts. As you know, I have a lot of friends that were running or that are involved municipally as well. So, and the reason I found out that you were running, and it was completely by luck, because, that one particular district that I had my eye on was indeed Loyola. And the reason for that is because the initial candidate that Denis Coderre had selected He's a pretty well-known figure in the EMSB, in the English Montreal School Board. In the middle of all this, turmoil around, the provincial government's proposed Bill 96, attempting to beef up, the whole French language legislation. I found that choice that he made was very interesting. And at the same time, in a period where pretty much every politician was being very careful about the French language, I thought, look, for sure, the media is going to be all over this guy. I need to follow it. Something might come out. I thought for sure the media is going to force that whole debate on the municipal campaign. And that's exactly what ended up happening, unfortunately, and also surprisingly, that candidate was, very offensive towards the French-speaking community, and he was removed. It was around that moment that I saw your name come up, and obviously I was very happy, but I was also very surprised. How come, this decision? Why? How did you make this decision? Why politics?
I was surprised. This was not in the plans. It really was not in my plans. In terms I have thought about politics. I've been involved. I'm surrounded by people who are highly engaged in different ways. I work in the community sector, so we're very close to the political world in that sense. We get resources from different levels of government, and I've been involved different nonprofit boards. So I've been around people who are engaged in those processes, and I actually a couple of people came to speak to me in the summer about running in Loyola, and thought about it, looked at the Projet Montréal's platform, spoke to my husband, see how that's going to impact. Obviously, politics, it looks like it's a lot of work, and it is, because I'm sure you've been in it, both front behind the scenes and in front of the scenes as well. So, we spoke about it. I valued it. I spoke to my boss too. I had to take time off to do that campaign. And I was nervous about putting my face on a postcard. Poster, obviously. I'm not a very, like you said, people don't know my interest or my positions and stuff like that. And that's how I'm usually more discreet. So I just said yes, and I did it. I'm glad I took that the chance, the opportunity that came to me. And what influenced me too is what Magda, who's our councillor in Côte-des-Neiges, told me. It's going into politics, becoming a city councillor is c'est comme donner de soi-même vraiment. So it's giving of yourself. I come from that sector. I'm in the community sector again, working 18 years on the ground like that. So it's kind of a natural progression, but not an obvious one when people don't really know that I thought of me doing it. But when I told people, they were like, great, I see you doing that. It's something you could be doing. So that's how it happened.
So it's important to note that you have been or had been working in that district for a long time, right?
Yes, 15 years.
So you worked in the last job that you held before jumping was that the Carrefour Emploi Jeunesse, right?
The Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi NDG. Yeah, I'm still say I am, but I was the assistant director there for the last 5 years. And prior to that, I worked in entrepreneurship promotion, mainly in schools and with young people. It's really targeting young adults who want to start a business. So I did work in NDG, but I also had regional mandates. So I worked with the English Montreal School Board, the Lester B. Pearson School Board, mainly in the English sector, but I also worked with the French school boards. So, I've been involved, and I know the area specifically because, we do have a table de concertation. I'm involved with all the organizations, kind of spread around the district. So it feels like home. It really feels like home.
Have you understood already that what you were doing before was politics? Like the involvement that you had and all these groups that you were working with, there's obviously a community aspect to it, right? Because you're at the service of this community and you're working for the betterment of this community. But it's 100% politics because all these organizations that you're working with and for, they all depend on public funding. And it's a consistent battle on, well, maybe not a battle, but it's a consistent effort on maintaining those contacts with government, those funds, and everything that goes into this effort to help you guys keep doing that work.
Of course, yeah, you're in constant communication. positioning, the ground, like the needs on the ground change. So those have to be communicated also to the government. Being in contact, we were very in close contact with our elected officials. I'm already being contacted by my the different organizations in my district. I naturally contacted them as well, obviously, because I come from that sector. But it took me a little bit of time to understand it fully, especially when I became the assistant director. You're looking at getting funding, developing projects based on the different needs that are coming up. So you understand, you get it more. But I progressively got it, especially in my role as an entrepreneurship awareness and promotion officer before, where I had to work with different stakeholders to build, whether it be a project, whether to build even a toolkit that I was building with the schools, with school professionals, youth. It's really, you're always kind of, it's PR. It's PR, but it's for a purpose. It's really for making sure that the people who are the most vulnerable are not left behind.
So for the people that don't know, what is the Emploi Jeunesse, like Carrefour Emploi Jeunesse? What do you guys do?
It's the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi actually were created in 1995 by Parizeau's government. And so basically they service the community by providing social professional support for youth, people 16 to 35. They exist across the province of Quebec. There's 20 on the island of Montreal. And so that's part of their mandate. The other mandate, it's also to work with the different stakeholders in the community to support youth in integrating socially and economically. So they also play a role of a concertation a little bit. This is kind of more recent because they reevaluated the role that the Carrefour played. And so they're very, they're basically created by the community and every community that they're in. So the one in NDG was created in 1998. So been around for a long time too. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the challenges in that district, specifically to that job that you had.
Mm-hmm. The specifics in the job, I would say the district is very diverse, and in different ways. There's a lot of English-speaking Montrealers that live in Loyola. I would say 45%. Well, statistically, 45% speak English at home. 26% speak English only. So there's that. That's very unique. You don't see it all across so there's that. A lot of recent immigrants. 26% of the population is recent immigrant. Recently immigrated to Canada. So there's that. Making sure that their needs are met. We recently created a decade ago, there was the Bienvenue NDG that's created that does support immigrants integrating in the community. There's also, there is marginalization. There are communities that are, they're really, really far out, and they're not, because we're surrounded by richer areas, we don't always get the resources needed to target these very, very marginalized communities. Right. So, how it works with government monies, based on statistics and so there's that works, that's there. So there's that. It's I would say it's that those are the main challenges it's not easy to always get the funding needed for the very, very specific needs in Loyola. Those, talking from the community sector level, those are the main challenges, I would say.
So in the time that you were there, what were some of the things that you succeeded at? What were some of the achievements that you guys managed to...
Achievements. But you mean overall achievements, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of things. I never really thought of it like achievements. I'm not in the. I don't really focus on that.
Well, you mentioned some of the programs that you put in place, and what were the things that you guys piloted? What were you guys, some of the things that you guys put forth that you were really proud of? Let's say.
Things that historically the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi has done we've put in place the table de concertation with other stakeholders, table de concertation jeunesse, that is still part of, we're kind of fiduciaries of the organization. So we do work with the table de concertation jeunesse. Again, the funding is not enough. Progressively, the organization is still working on that, but it has been a great support for other youth organizations. And getting funding, getting visibility, positioning the community in a favorable way. So that's, I think, one of the successful things that have been done. In terms of all the entrepreneurship stuff, I find, that mandate was given to us by the government back in 2000s. And then that kind of we were getting specific monies to do entrepreneurship awareness. But we did put in place during our time when... to 2016, we had put in place many different programs or events for youth to sensitize them to entrepreneurship, to get them involved in wanting to start a business. So those are the kinds of things that I found very interesting, because you get to see young people already at they're teenagers, and they're already starting to think of what they want to do next and kind of finding their voice through these channels. So those are kinds of things that I really, that's what I loved doing, really, getting those programs out and seeing the fire in these kids that, kind of grow. And
right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the campaign. How was that experience? Tell me about it.
You know what? I loved it so much. I was so nervous the first day that I had to do the door to door, and I settled down after that. But it really just took one day, I think, because
once you get your feet wet, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this.
I could do this. I was doing it 6 hours a day. Like at the end, like the last month, 6 hours a day, almost every day. Yeah, every day. So it's talking to everyone, really getting a sense of what people need. You're connecting to them on a personal level as well, and it reinforces like your conviction that what you're doing is right, that your direction, the direction you took, or the decision you took to go into politics is right, and that you could represent these needs. So for me, that was really great. I really loved that. Getting to know the volunteers too. I had people like, who come with you every day, and not every day, but almost every day. And, seeing that dedication of others as well to a political party or a cause or you. Gives you more confidence.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Isn't it amazing and obviously you get to meet a lot of people, right? So you're sitting in there in your election, you're in your committee office, and you're seeing all these people coming in just wanting to help out and just giving themselves to you and say, look, what do you want me to do for you? Like, isn't that fantastic? Isn't that like a great feeling to know that there's people that are willing to give up their own time and their own energy to kind of help you?
Of course not. That I found that very I was like amazed, and the ease. Some people were very comfortable going alone too. They would go and just knock on doors they were going to like go as a group, it would kind of split up. And so that was interesting too, to see that the knowledge, that they believed in what they were doing, so I don't know, that gave me more confidence every day, even to the last hours, you're going down, you're like,
well, it's important to notice. It's important to note that, it wasn't the last day for you. I mean, that lasted several days after, because the results were contested and you had to go to a recount. I remember watching the results, and look, you ran, and I have no problem saying this. I mean, you ran against a guy that I know very well. I mean, he's a friend. Gabriel, cool guy, very, involved for a long time. So I'm following this and I'm thinking, where the hell, where's this going? And I remember messaging you and I'm like, are you speaking to lawyers? Because if I know Gabriel well enough, if this finishes anywhere between 1 and 150 vote difference, he's contesting. And you're like, what? Oh yeah, okay, sure. Let me just ask. And indeed, that's what happened.
Well, for me, it's not something that I know, right? So you told me, and I was like, yeah, but it was in the back of my head. I was like, kind of happy when the final result. It took a long time to get the final result, right? I think the first run I won by 87 votes. So I was like, it was what? And they announced that, like, I think on TV at 1 a.m. at some point that I won, but it was really, really confirmed in the morning because they hadn't finished counting all the boxes. So I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen next. So when I won, I was happy, but I had a little bit of a reserve, right? I knew, I'm like, well, it is a very tight race. It was also a tight race between the mayor of the borough and...
Right. Who ended up losing as well, Lionel Perez. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gracia, so that was also, and there were other races across the island, across Montreal, that we saw that, and they were contested as well on both ends. So, it was just, So you had the yay, you started preparing, and they asked for the recount like pretty much the day that you could ask for it, the last day. So very close to, I was like, maybe they won't, but I was not like, I always had it in the back of my head, so I was ready for it. Of course, it delays things, right? It delays like recount, and they have to, swear you in, and happen pretty quickly, the next steps. But so there was a bit of a wait there, but it's a great first experience because, nothing is like guaranteed. So everything that you do might have an impact on you winning or not. And it also shows that, I do have like work to do to really ensure that I have the people's trust, right?
Exactly.
That I want to work on that.
You know what I find crazy? Because we got a little taste of it in 2017, but I think it became more concrete in this election, where you had big names just dropping. And in 2017, a lot of people were surprised, right? Guys like Haru Chatilian and Annie Sanson and all the, Elsie Lefebvre and Villeray, all these big names, they just went under with the boat that sank. And we thought, okay, whatever, maybe it's just circumstances. And this time around, I know, and we're not only talking about Montreal, even in the regional,
even I see it in Laval and
like you have. We're not going to call them nobodies because nobody knows what the background is for any individual that decides to run, but essentially, the big names and all these star candidates, that whole culture behind the star candidate does not seem to work anymore, at least not at the municipal level. I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen this year for the provincial one. But, we saw that happening in 2017, the municipal one, and we saw it again repeat itself now. I find that quite amazing. I don't know. There was Guillaume Lavoie, which was a huge catch for Denis Coderre, who ended up losing as well. I just don't know how to explain it. I don't know if there's a demographic shift, if it's that younger generation that now is at age to vote and doesn't really care about who has been there and who's who and what's what. They just really go on case by case. They look at people individually. They look at platforms. I don't know how to explain it yet, but
it was different things, I think.
Yeah, it was generalized across the province. So, and that's I'm not just talking about Montreal.
Yeah. Like we saw the young woman who won in the Longueuil, right?
Right, yeah.
So there's that. I think it's just maybe there's a need for renewal. Municipal politics, a lot of times people do stay for a long time. So, need for renewal, maybe. There's also the campaigning that is done on social media, mobilizing people, phones. There's different ways of getting people to vote or like encouraging them to vote for you, convincing them, So there's a campaign, whatever you're proposing, and then getting the vote out, obviously, as well. So I think it's like multiple factors that.
Well, the important thing that you said, obviously, is, the work on the ground, right? You won by a very thin margin. You got to make sure now that you gain people's trust, that you got to make sure that that they didn't make any mistake, right?
Yeah. And they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to prove it to them now.
Of course.
So I don't know if you've already adapted, but how are you adapting? I'm assuming you guys aren't at city council. You're working from a distance.
Yes, I'm working so we were at city, I have an office both at the city council and at the borough because I have the special, the advisory position at on the executive committee. But so I'm working from home. The adapting went pretty well, I would say. Very quickly. It went super fast. So, we get sworn in, named to the executive committee. We had our first borough council meeting a week later, several extraordinary ones as well, because we were backed up. So it just happens very quickly. I'm adapting well because of the team and, I'm naturally a person who likes to be around people and dynamic environments. So that's great. It's also challenging because there's a lot of things to understand. It's not, you get dynamics, right? But then there's processes. There are processes, there's rules. What is my specific role everywhere,
Right.
how do you pass a motion? Those kinds of things that are pretty, you see them, but then there's work that's done behind the scenes. That's
Right.
also important to learn. A lot of reading. I've read a lot of different documentation. I keep doing that. I'm starting to see citizens, also meeting up with citizens that have specific needs. Or the proposals that want to be involved. That's something that's very interesting. I find about my district. People want to get involved, even at the doors. They have like citizens committees and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. But there is it's like a steep learning curve. It's like this.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, I would like to go back to some in-person things. For now it's fine. Obviously, you have
But there's an advantage, right? And I was having this conversation with our friend Annie Koutrakis, who gets elected at the federal level in Laval, and
my parents.
Yeah, so she came in 2019, and obviously, the pandemic happened right after, and she was saying how challenging it is, because you're not in Ottawa, but at the same time, because I've seen, for you, it doesn't really affect you because you're in Montreal, right? At the end of the day, you're still coming back home. So for people that work in Quebec City or in Ottawa, where, if you're getting in for the first time and you're not so sure what to expect, it could be tough on the family, right? To be gone for 4 or 5 days straight every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe perhaps it's a good thing that good thing. We're not going to call COVID a good thing, but I'm saying, working and getting introduced into politics this way, the fact that you're still close to your family and that you're getting kind of your feet wet in politics, maybe it's not so bad, right?
You're still grounded, you're anchored in something that so you're kind of, there's a little bit of comfort there. It's good for my daughter because I think she forgot who I was during that campaign.
Yeah.
I call her dad at night. I'm like, wait, I'm your mother. I'm going to come.
How old is she now?
She's a little bit over 3. She's like 3 in a few months.
Okay. Yeah. I thought she was like newborn or something.
I know, but it's because you skipped 2 years. We barely didn't see each other. So
I get stuck in time, and I thought you just gave birth and she ran for office.
No, not that. But it was a you have to think about it when you have a small kid. But we have, Dennis, he works from home as well. He's been working from home since April of 2020 when the pandemic started. They were transitioning into that the federal government, and now he's working from home, which is, great. So, there's a little bit of balance in that sense, but I just miss that interaction. If you could have a little bit of everything, that would be
okay, so tell me now the responsibilities that you've been given. You mentioned being named to the executive committee. Okay, what are your roles? What were you?
So I'm a special conseiller associé, is an associate advisor to Josefina Blanco, who's in charge of homelessness, diversité, inclusion sociale. So those are her files, and I'm in.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And I'm actually I'm going to be working on the status of women, diversity issues, seniors, and there's 4 things: diversity, seniors, status of women, and my God, why am I not? Did I say status of women?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my 4. But I'm mainly going to be working with the advisory councils, the Conseil Jeunesse, the Conseil des Montréalaises, and the Conseil Interculturel. So I'm going to be having statutory meetings with them. As Josefina is obviously with me, but I'm kind of working more closely with them, creating the links between that and my role in the executive committee. Specific projects, for seniors, we're going to be renewing the MARA plan, the Municipalité Amis des Aînés. So that's going to be put in place, and it already exists, but it's going to be renewed. And this year we're working on the one for 2023-25. So, different elements around that, ensuring that the gender-based and intersectional analysis are integrated in all services within the city of Montreal. So those are like the executive committee responsibilities. I'm also on two commissions, la Commission de la Présidence du Conseil and the Commission on Housing and Social Cohesion for the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal. So I'm a member of that commission. So, there's extras. I haven't really, we're going to have meetings more for the commissions in the coming weeks. So I'm going to get to know more my place within those commissions as well. Right. But I'm really looking forward to, it's nice because I have like the macro, more, bigger picture. And then you have your city councillor work that is very district oriented and, it's on the ground, which is what I've been doing for a long time. So I kind of like the balance of both,
How many councillors in Côte-des-Neiges NDG?
5 councillors, 1 mayor.
I think it's the biggest one, right, in Montreal?
We are population-wise.
Yeah, population.
Biggest. Yeah.
5 councillors, 1 mayor. What's the distribution? How many from your end? How many from Ensemble?
2 for Ensemble and 3 councillors for R, and the mayor's ours as well. The mayorship is ours. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the majority at Borough.
Borough. Yeah.
Okay. When is that starting?
The Borough Council?
Yeah.
You've started already.
Oh, they've started already?
We started literally we had our first extraordinary council to announce the other ones in November, the last week of November. And then we had 2 in December, municipal councils. We had the municipal council meetings as well in November and in December, which are long as well. I don't know if you know how long, but they're very many, many hours. So, it's we're already in it. Reading all the documents. So I'm saying a lot of reading because you have to prepare for those meetings, you have to know the files. And I do lack, obviously, like the bigger, all the information needed because I wasn't there prior to that. But I find that, I'm already in. Get to know things right away.
You look happy and excited. Tell me a little bit about Loyola. What's the reality on the ground?
Like I said before, it's a district that has pockets of poverty. There's specific areas that are poor. There's an older English-speaking population that's been living there for a long time. There is obviously there's a conception that NDG Loyola, let's say that it's more NDG in general is more English-speaking, which it is more, but there is a good French-speaking population as well. A lot of immigrants, like I mentioned earlier, recently arrived. Demographically speaking, the borough and Loyola kind of have the same percentage of more or less immigrant population, historically immigrant and more recent immigrant population, more so than the rest of Montreal as well. We have a strong population that is of immigrant descent. That's some of the things I could say about demographics speaking. Yeah. On the ground, there's a lot of families with young kids. There's elderly people as well. There's a strong student population. We have Concordia's Loyola campus in our district. There's a lot of high schools, English high schools. There's Saint-Luc is the main French high school in our district. We have the English Montreal School Board in my district. So there's a lot of schools.
Right.
Okay, so because there's a lot of families as well. What else could I say? We have green spaces. We do have, interestingly enough, it's a little bit outside of city center, right? So it has a very residential feel. We have commercial streets like Sherbrooke, Summerled, but it's still, it's mainly residential, I would say. Some things I could say about that. Anything else?
Tell me about the challenges ahead now. So we have a mandate ahead of us. The next 4 years. It's not going to be an easy mandate. I've been reading a lot about a lot of journalists that write about municipal politics. It's going to be a very difficult mandate. There's some really hot topics on the agenda. Like COVID-19 and a bunch of other ones that we can mention. What's the plan going forward now on these challenges? So, how are we dealing with COVID-19 on a municipal level?
COVID, we do have the Centre de Coordination des Mesures d'Urgence that helps in putting forth all the measures that need to be put in place for, to ensure the sanitary state of Montreal. So there's that. We also called the state of emergency recently in December. So we could use all the resources needed to ensure that we're meeting the rapidly changing needs that are on the ground. So, I mean, there's that. More at my level, specifically at the borough, we are working with the borough to ensure all the services and activities that are offered by the borough that can be offered so that people are not left without, activities to do, or make sure the parks are upgraded, the skating rinks. That was a big thing. We don't have like ideal weather for skating all the time. So making sure that we're able to quickly, resolve those things that allow people to, have some respite from like the COVID situation that is
right
everywhere. And so I mean, it's not an easy thing, and it's there's like what Montreal is doing, what the provincial government is doing, and there's obviously what Canada is doing. It's obviously like that really depends on the three levels of government and how everything kind of is coordinated on the ground. Because usually the city is like operational, right? A lot of it is operational.
Yeah, so you're the proximity government, right? You're the hands-on kind of people.
Yeah. So you want to keep that hands-on and make sure the direct, smaller things that are smaller but important things like libraries are,
What's happening? Because I find it interesting that you're involved with the files around homelessness, along with your colleague. We just had in the news one individual, a senior, that died in the cold.
On my territory.
It was on your territory as well. So you have all these homeless shelters now that are either full or that can accept people that may be infected with COVID, and there's a huge problem, right? I mean, we can't just have people dying on the streets. Every year we unfortunately hear these things happening, right? Is there a plan for that?
There is. I mean, again, Josefina works more on that. I don't really work directly on that file. I'm more associated to that, but there have been, the places are found. There are spaces for people to go. We have the EMIS team also that is a psychosocial intervention team that was put in place in order to deal with, issues on the ground and help people who are experiencing homelessness toward shelters and things like that. The person who passed away, unfortunately, was known to the CIUS and local police forces and organizations as well. They would check in on him. They have a system in place already to deal, and it's a lot of it is the services sociaux and santé's job to do that. We're there for a lot of the operational. Again, we do support organizations. Also, we've doubled the funding that will go to organizations that are dealing with itinérance for the time that's coming, for the years to come, because it's not going to disappear overnight, obviously. So there is coordination around that. So it's for me, it's very hard to, when I think about these things, it's very hard to know there's to know that there is all these things happening and you're doing everything in your capacity, but and I see all the work that's being done. I see the agility in the teams, and it's at all levels. We're doing the best we can. So,
well, because the plant administration, especially in the last couple of years, has come under fire a lot, especially since making those decisions on taking down those shelters, right? Those homeless shelters, along Notre Dame and all these other ones, calling in the cops and just pulling everything apart. I understand that you don't want homeless people just laying around in all public spaces, right? Because it is a public space. It's there for everyone. And, the fact that you have all these shelters or all these tents going up, maybe it's not visually appealing, or maybe it's not the right place. And at the same time, you don't have the space to put them in. So, do you think that Valerie Plante is, between a rock and a hard place there? I mean, it's a difficult situation to even.
I mean, I think that we're doing the utmost that we can to ensure that we're taking into consideration cohabitation issues as well as emergency actions. So I again, it's Josefina is more like on that file. I mean, locally in Loyola, there is obviously people experiencing homelessness. You see it in other sectors a lot more, and there's more resources as well in Côte des Neiges. We have the Haute Chaleur that are in place, so it's a tough one, but again, it's
But see,
That most
because I was reading articles as well on this individual, and like you said, he was well known by the police forces and by all the services and the organizations on the ground. And one thing that came up was that was the issue with the police stations, where there's a lack of funding, and they're merging police stations, taking them out from one district and merging them, merging, for example, two districts into one local police station. Obviously that leaves less people on the ground. I'm not saying that
it doesn't actually. The idea, like there was going to be this one for it happened in my district. Right now we're waiting for the bilan on that, the report, to fully see the impact of that merger. So it's not something that's gonna just happen all over Montreal. First of all, it's something that has to be.
Well, it's happened in a couple of districts, and it happens in districts where they're needed the most. Like it happened in Parkex, for example, in Côte des Neiges and NDG. I mean, these are the districts where you would imagine you have permanent stations there.
Mm-hmm. Again, like I think we're waiting to see the report on that, specifically in my district, to see what the impact is. And it should be out soon. I mean, they did an initial report, and there wasn't a big difference in the incidence of crime or things like that. And the idea was like to actually have more people on the ground and less people in the station. But we're waiting to see that, to see what the next steps will be. Do we, the satellite one? What? It's not something that is. We're going to be shutting down. I mean, that's not what we're going for. It's really to evaluate and also to do consultations with people to see what is needed specifically on the ground as well.
Let's talk about the biggest hot potato, downtown. Our downtown core that has completely turned into like a ghost town. Maybe not recently. I mean, we saw some life come back around the summertime, a little after the summer. Obviously now with everything happening, I don't really go downtown very often with all the construction work and the state of the state of the roads and everything happening there. It's, first of all, it's frustrating for every driver. What's the plan? What's the strategy? How do we revive downtown? How do we get things back to what it used to be?
Well, again, that's in the file that is under Luc Rabouin's. Really, he's in charge of economic development. Specifically, there is a relaunch plan that is going to be put in place. That is started being put in place. The 90 million relaunch plan for Montreal. So that's going to be moved forward at that level. I mean, locally, again, I know more. I'm new, so more locally, what I want to work on is work closely with merchants. There's already been like discussions on creating a Société de Développement Commercial for my district and NDG as well, working with them, ensuring that they're having access to whatever emergency supports they could get, promoting local business as well. So, I mean, more locally, that's what we're doing. At the greater level, there is money to relaunch the economy, and the economy was doing pretty okay considering the situation. So it's a bigger file, that one, I think. And
are you hearing from like, since you're speaking about locally, I'd love to get your feel on this, because I mean I still get calls and I get feedback from a lot of people. Obviously, the circumstances around COVID-19 aren't the best. What are you hearing on the ground with all these closures? The Sunday closures of the business and the lockdown measures and all these things. How has it affected business? How has it affected locally your merchants?
I mean, one thing that was happening before the pandemic, and it was become more difficult, is finding people to work.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing a lot. And I worked in the employment sector, so I knew that the industry, the restauration, like when you talk about local business, it's a lot. It's restaurants and retail. It's hard to keep staff. So there's that, obviously. The numbers are going down, financially too. A lot of businesses adapted and they went online, or they do a lot of takeout if it comes to restaurants and things like that. But I mean, it's mixed. There's positive things that have come out of it, but businesses have been. I think it's really finding the human resources. What I'm seeing a lot, steady staff to do the hours that they have to do, considering all the measures in place and other people are changing industries completely, going back to school. There's
Right.
a lot of also to incite people to do other programs, like small trainings to get into different industries. We know we have a pénurie de main-d'œuvre as well, or in the health sector, education sector, IT also. A lot of work is being done to get people in IT, which is a little bit easier to get into. So there is, So that's what I'm observing a lot. Yeah.
Debbie, I know you have to get back to your committees. Thanks for coming on. It was good seeing you. I don't know when we're going to see each other again, but usually we see each other around Christmas and a couple
Christmas, the summer. I crashed your picnic with everyone at Jerry Park last year. Yeah, I saw you twice last summer. Well, this summer, 2021 summer.
Yeah. Wait, were we at Jerry Park last summer?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I think it was.
Okay, maybe you weren't. Okay, I don't remember. Well, that's what I remember.
What? You weren't invited, George? No, I'm just joking. Yeah, no. I'm just looking forward to this thing, so that we can get back to normal and that we can just see each other again, man. Honestly.
Yeah.
Congratulations again. Really
Thank
happy
you.
for you. Wishing you lots and lots of success. There's a lot of things obviously for you to learn and for you to adapt to, but I think you're going to do great. I'm sure of it.
Thank you.
All right, Debbie. Thanks.
Looking forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.